Hey everyone, it's Blair here at Time Trades. Thanks for joining me this weekend. This is your subscriber video for Sunday, October 1st. Okay, well, this is where we left things off on last week's video. Looking at the NQ, we identified a potential for an interim short-term high here between September 28th and October 2nd. And it looks like that was a very successful forecast. We can see this big wick up into the GAN fans here, the two 1x1s here that are crossing and actually cross between Friday and Monday. So let's just remind ourselves where these GAN fans come from. The top descending GAN fan is anchored to the July 19th high. And if we scroll back in time, we can see this lower GAN fan is anchored to the April 25th low. So both very important points, and they both played an important role in Friday's price action, which was very, very interesting. Came within just a few points of the target box there before reversing hard into the end of the day. So I'd give myself an A for this, even though it didn't quite hit the target box. I usually like to reserve A's for hitting the target box, but it was a pretty narrow target box. It was just 3 days, and we came within just a couple points of making a bullseye right in the middle of that target box. So I'm pretty happy with that forecast from last week. Now, of course, the question is, what's next? All right, so we got a lot of very good information from the price action last week that tells us which GAN fans are in control. Now, we can see here this 1x8 down is in control, and also based on the rejection up here, price was unable to cross the 1x4 down. So it's very much this wedge here between the 1x8 and 1x4 that's in control until something changes, until we get a confirmed close above and separation above. Then, here's your support and resistance levels. Looking lower, which is the obvious inference from last week's price action, we can see we've got support down here at the 14,400 level. We've got a 1x1 coming up from, let's double check where this was anchored to. It's coming up from the January 6th low, okay? So that's a very important level. And we've got these two red 4x1s that are descending down from the pair of all-time highs. All right, so this area I identified last week as being a very important area, and we're going to refine this forecast. We're not going to, make radical changes to this target box here that's currently anchored between October 5th and October 17th, but we are going to refine it, narrow it down a little bit in time, and we're going to expand it a little bit in price to accommodate what I think some of the potential price action is. So let's just turn on eclipses here and remind ourselves a little bit of where we are in some of the bigger cycles. So the big purple box here, this is eclipse season. So this is where we get the pair of lunar and solar eclipses. And a big part of the premise here is that we would see a low in the first half of eclipse season. That's not invalidated yet. So we're going to continue with that premise. And the other part of the premise is we do think that moving into Venus interval 2 here is going to push prices up. All right. So the other part of the premise that we've talked about on prior videos is that this low here in the prior Venus interval 6 is really important. And despite the big downdraft in price here on the NQ, we still haven't broken that prior interval 6 low at 14,258. So there's room for prices to come down lower, but also the potential for higher prices looking into November remains. So what are we seeing here on time trades? Let's flip over to that. Okay, so we can take a look at the NDX here, and we can see that we've got this cluster of pivots that peak around October 12th. But we also see in the daily mass pressure index, we see a low here October 6th. So the October 12th, I'd say October 6th to 12th area in that week is starting to look interesting from the machine learning perspective. Okay, so let's take a look at SPX and DJI. When it comes to SPX, we've got a spike in pivot probability around October 12th as well, right? Now, this is not a super high probability here, but it does align with a lot of other stuff that's going on. So it gives us some level of confluence. All right, and we can look at the Dow. The Dow is some elevated levels of pivots here in that same area, although there's no super clear signal. But again, it doesn't invalidate what we're looking at, right? So that's really what I'm looking for here. Okay, so based on that, and some other research that I've been doing some other research using speed and cycles. And I'm not going to share that with you today, but I am going to go back to TradingView here and using some of that offline research I've been doing, combined with the GANFAN orientation and price action from last week, combined with the machine learning. And remember, the machine learning considers 1,400 data points when it's building out those probabilities. I'm going to be shrinking this down to identifying a potential low the week of October 9th. That seems to be the hot spot here for me. So that would be the 9th to the 13th, okay? And I'm also going to pull this down a little bit lower to align with a potential double bottom here with the June low. Okay, so that's around 14,263. So I want to ensure that there's a potential for that price action here. Plus, we haven't seen price really break out of this wedge. This descending wedge between the 1x8 and 1x4. So I want to allow for that possibility where price could just continue straight down this 1x4 into our target box where we have some timing. Okay, so that's going to be our updated forecast going forward. We're going to run with this. The upper price levels of the forecast, I'm just thinking aloud here and wondering if these are still valid here, and wonder what justification do I have for these upper price levels, or if they should be moved down a little bit. Yeah, I don't really see anything, because like part of the logic here was that this red 4x1 coming up from the low on August 18th would provide some support, and that's already been penetrated. So this 4x1 and the 8x1 were both penetrated last week. So I think they're going to be pretty weak support here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull this down a little bit and line it up with the top of this 8x1 to allow for the potential of maybe a bounce at the top of the 8x1. But honestly, when it gets this close to a magic level, you can see that the magic level at 14,583 was already touched. I really think it's going to get touched again, and we're going to have to look to some lower GANFANs here for support in the second week of October. Okay, so that's our update for the week for NQ. And let's transition over to gold. I'm going to be considering gold next, and then Bitcoin. So let's go over to gold here. And gold has had a rough week, and of course, hindsight's always 20/20. So I'm going to play a little bit of hindsight analyst here and identify how we could have identified this trade potential here. So the bigger picture on gold, we had a bullish bias coming into this because of prior price action in Venus interval 1. The prior interval ones had some very bullish moves, especially in the second half here. So we were looking for a bullish move for that to repeat with a bullish move in the second half of Venus interval 1. And obviously we have not got that. If we drill into Venus interval 1 here, we can see how we got a high right on the 50% mark of Venus interval 1. But then after that, price failed. Okay. So what are the clues in hindsight that we could have seen? Well, you know, for one, we've got this triple top here. Law of three is something that I've learned about recently in terms of identifying potential turning points. We've got 1, 2, 3 turning points here all around 2063 with no invalidation afterwards. But then there's a second example of law of three using GAN fans here. You anchor a GAN fan to this to the highest close up here on May 4th, and then you can see 1, 2, 3 failures at the descending 2x1. So it poked above but couldn't sustain it, right? And this was simply the third failure up here on September 20th. So that was a big reason why I talked about, you know, this is kind of time for gold to put up or shut up. On last week's video, it could not establish this move higher. It lost the descending 2x1 right on Monday, and that turned into a very red week. So this is you know, something to consider going forward when building out forecasts. And again, it also highlights the importance of looking at Venus intervals non-directionally. So again, we're getting the big move that we tend to get in interval ones. It just wasn't in the direction that we saw in the last few instances of Venus interval 1. We're getting a big move down. So where can we find some support here for gold? Well, we've got a 1x1 down here at 1835. We've got a couple of we've got the lows in Venus interval 5 over here at 1816. We've got a descending GAN fan over here at 1822. So I think this could be an area where we can look for a potential bounce. If we go over to time trades, we can also see on gold there's a very big spike in probabilities of a pivot on October 5th. So I tend to prefer clusters of spikes, but this is something to pay attention to and watch the price action on October 5th. October 5th is just before the 3/4 mark. It's the day before the 3/4 mark of the Venus interval 1. All right, so looks like we've got a little bit more to go on the downside before we see a chance for a reversal on gold. All right, let's take a look at Bitcoin. So here we are at Bitcoin. I've been focused in on this 1x1 down here quite a bit. And I know there's a lot going on here. So let me just hide the time trades, and we can just focus in on the GAN fans because that's really what's important here on Bitcoin. So with Bitcoin, we've had 1, 2 attempts to break through this descending 1x1. And on the third try, it made it. So we broke through, we created separation. This now activates kind of bullish mode on Bitcoin and buy the dip mode on Bitcoin. We've got this 1x1 down here anchored to the August 17th low. And based on that, we can look at this range here between the 2x1, the ascending 2x1, and the ascending 1x1. So this kind of establishes our range, and we're starting to see some nice wicks up in this range between the 3x1 and 4x1 anchored to June 15th. So what I'm looking for is kind of a breakout above this 3x1, which is the purple line, which is currently acting as resistance here, and looking forward to some sort of breakout here that will establish and activate this 1x1 going up. And that was resistance over here in September 8th and September 19th. Okay, so that's my thinking on Bitcoin. Definitely have a bullish bias here, and looking for opportunities to buy dips here on Bitcoin. All right, so we can wrap things up with a quick look at the Bitcoin machine learning chart here, and we see a steady increase in moves up where the pivots are very quiet. So we're not getting a lot of information from the probabilities of a pivot, but we're seeing a big ramp up of moves up into October 25th, 26th. And the daily mass pressure index is showing a kind of a down move and then an up move back up here into late October. So I don't really depend on this a lot in my analysis, but it does give some interesting turning points. I really lead with GAN fans in identifying potential moves. And that aligns, that is aligning, like based on the GAN fan orientation, we can make a high probability assumption that the increasing moves here that we see are going to be moves up, unless one of those lower supportive GAN fans gets broken. So I'm going to wrap up today's call with a quick look at Tesla. I wanted to share with the group something I tweeted out here, which is really the power of the sun with respect to Tesla. And this is based on the Wheel of 24. So I want to kind of show off and highlight some of these features that are lurking in corners of time trades here that you may not be aware of. So this allows you to take planetary locations. So these are geocentric planetary locations, and then convert them to price using something called the Wheel of 24. And when we do that with Tesla and then make an adjustment to the basically the factor or the relationship between price and longitude, so instead of like $1 per sector on the Wheel of 24, we've got $2. So that steepens the lines here. And we can see some amazing channels that emerge from this, right? If we want to also add where it makes a complete lap of the Wheel of 24, this is what we show 24 lines does. And when you turn that on, you can see some incredible support and resistance levels here. We came down last week and hit this Wheel of 24 line. So again, that's basically the beginning and the end of the wheel. And you can see it provides some really solid resistance up here, really solid support, and it's a great trading guide here. So I think some of the information that we can use here with respect to Tesla is just knowing where it is in that sun channel. So if we start seeing an uptrend emerge in a sun channel, we can expect it to continue for a while. Also, if we see it cross a sun channel to the downside, that's another indicator that there's a change in trend and that we can expect it to continue for usually at least one interval of the sun channel, and possibly more, as we can see here, this drop from the July 19th high across 1, 2.5 sun channels down to the August 18th low. So definitely something to incorporate into your analysis and trading toolkit. It's very effective. Play around with different planets on different symbols. Okay, that's it for me. I hope you had a great week trading. Take care and always manage your risk, and we'll talk to you again next week. Thank you. Bye now.